These are moments of encounter. A few days ago, I was in Denver, Colorado. I was with my daughter. Just happened to be there at a hotel that had some water on a day when little goslings, baby geese, had hatched. And we got to watch them as the mother led them out of the nest. They tumbled around a little bit, made their first scary venture into the water. And I remembered the story, and I told my daughter, I said, what just happened to the baby geese, and it happens to ducks, and it happens to chickens, it's called imprinting. That the moment they're hatched, the first thing they see, it imprints in their mind, this is who I'm supposed to follow. Well, when we are born again as Christians, I know we're not hatched. You're not a duck. You're not a goose. We're humans, but the same process takes place that when we are born again, the first thing we see, we want to follow. And when we become a new creature in Christ and we see Him, there's no second chance at a first imprint. There's no second chance at a first impression. So what's happening in this room right now with these young people and with all of you as Eddie James has sort of led us out, we're being forced into the water in the big wide world, but we're following still Him because He is the one who made the first impression on our heart. He is who we're after. It's not really to follow man. We may be swimming in the pond of Calvary Assembly in Decatur, Alabama tonight. We may be under the auspices of Pastor George Sawyer, but it's really Jesus' world. And He's who we want to follow. And there'll come a day when those were Canada geese, and there's going to come a moment and a day when that mother goose is going to say, now it's time to fly. And those little geese are going to fly and follow her to a far distant land. It's called migration. Do you know what's going to happen to you and I one of these days? The one who imprinted us is going to take wings and He's going to fly. And we may have never flown before, but on that day, we're going to follow Him. We'll be caught up together to meet Him in the air. And so shall we ever. It's called the rapture. They may call it migration when it comes to geese, but when it comes to you and I, it's called going to be with Jesus. And I never have understood people who say, Eddie James worships too long. I don't understand that, because why would you want to go to heaven and do for an eternity what you can't enjoy for an hour on earth? Maybe it's because He's not your magnificent obsession. Do you understand that when, can I talk to you for just a minute? When we first got married, my wife and I, we were so poor. I bought her a wedding ring and it had 3 diamonds in it. And she's kept it all these years. Thank goodness, 35 years later, we're still married. A few years ago, I wanted to get her some new jewelry. It was our anniversary, and I also wanted to get this ring polished up. It's 35 years old, or at that point it would have been 30 years old. And I took it to the jeweler, and he looked at it, and he called me back. He said, Mr. Tenney, do you know one of the diamonds is missing? And I looked at it, and I was thinking, the diamonds were so little that they've been missing for 20 years. We didn't even know it. I mean, that's pitiful, isn't it? So on that occasion, I got her a big diamond. I've been blessed. If you had to live with me for 30 years, you need a big diamond. I was sitting on a plane sometime after that, and I was reading, and I kind of laid my head back, and across the ceiling of the plane, there was a kaleidoscope of colors. It was red and blue and green, and it was obviously a reflection. And then every few minutes it would kind of move, and the pinprick that was blue would turn green, and the one that was red would turn yellow, and they would twist and flash. And I started, where's that coming from? And I looked, and it was from her ring, the new diamond I gave her. And she'd kind of fallen asleep, and the sunlight was coming in, and every time she would shift or move a little bit, it would change, it would reflect a new color. And I thought for a moment, do you know how long the angels have been around the throne of God in heaven? See, the throne in heaven is not a chair. It's actually angels where their eyes and where their words collide. He sits suspended in worship. He doesn't sit on a chair that has 4 legs. What holds him up is our worship. And I know that the earthly picture is really poor, because all we have is the Ark of the Covenant, and it's got 2 little angels, one on one side and one on the other. And in between is called the mercy seat. But just like you take a picture back from the Grand Canyon where you went on vacation, and you show it to your friends, and they're unimpressed because you have to be there to sense the magnitude of the Grand Canyon. So when God wanted us to have an earthly picture of what goes on in heaven, He took a snapshot, and it's one cherubim and the other, and they're out of gold. And we're impressed by that. We go Harrison Ford, and people chase the Ark of the Covenant all over, but that's just a snapshot. The heavenly throne is not just 2 angels. He sits surrounded by millions of angels. And because heaven is 3-dimensional, they're above Him and they're beneath Him. They're on this side, they're on that side. He sits surrounded by a golden orb of worshiping angels. And where their words and where their eyes collide, He sits suspended. And do you know how long they've been doing that? For an eternity. And they're still fascinated by Him. Because just as when my wife moved her hand, a new color reflected. Every time the Lord of glory shifts just a little bit in the throne, a new color is reflected. And the angels who've been watching Him for an eternity say, I've never seen that before. Did you see that color? The one who invented the rainbow, has an unlimited palette at His exposure. He can create colors that you have not yet seen. He flicked His fingertips, and the stars flew into space like diamonds on black velvet. And He named every one of them. When He's seated there in the middle of that worship, suddenly He hears something. Can you sing a little line, Eddie? I don't care what you sing, just sing a little something.